Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thank you very much for joining me as I continue my exploration of this amazing, incredible wide world of pens. And yes, one is rotating in front of you. And yes, why do I have it? Lots of answers. The first one is, I just think it's a beautiful looking pen. Number two, yes, it's a V60. Yes, it looks like Omas is 360, and I do have a 360, and I don't write with it. But I wanted a translucent one that you could see the filling system, because I was just interested in the way the pen is put together and made. So that's why this pen is here, and it does look really, really good. So we're going to explore this pen, talk a little bit about it, and this one will be inked up. And we'll see how it writes and how I feel about writing with the pen. So with that, Mr. Crab will give you a winky wink and we'll dive in. So I've mentioned recently in my videos that fountain pens are a very personal object and very subjective object because they work with your hand to deposit ink on some surface. The other thing that I think makes fountain pens at least interesting for me is they all have an amazing look. I love that band. Yes, it's that Greek geometric pattern, and yes, that clip is very familiar. But this pen is made extremely well, looks extremely well, and we'll see shortly how well it works. And you can see that piston filling mechanism there inside the barrel. And there seems to be an extra area there that you could adjust to get that piston to come up more and give you more ink flow, more ink capacity. I've done that on some Hong Dion pens, but Doodlebud tried that with his, and he didn't gain any more capacity. Ended up cracking the cap at the end of the barrel, the piston cap. So I'm not going to do that. It's also a challenge to pull out the nib because they've kind of set it in there so you make certain that it lines up properly, as you can see. So this pen has geometric constraints. You know, that cap fits very nicely. It's a very solid sound. That blind cap lines up really well with the pen. Not something that's easy to do and accomplish. And Moonman, Majohn, was able to do that. I appreciate that. And the pen is a good size pen, and it fits okay in the hand without posting, and if you want to, you can post it, but it posts very high, not very secure, so I wouldn't call it a good poster at any stretch of the imagination. And as I felt before, I'm not a fan of triangular grips. I don't like my Lamy Safari grips or other pens that force your fingers into one particular spot and don't give you that ability of moving around on the section like I enjoy doing while I write for long sessions. But I do love that replication of that Greek motif band there at the bottom of the section, and they did copy the 360 quite well, and I don't find anything wrong with that. You know, it's a pen, and it's a pen I bought for particular reasons. Looking like the 360 was not one of them. So we're in dark mode for a particular reason, as I bring in my trusty LED. And yes, that is very translucent. And yes, there's a cap liner in there. But you'll notice at the top of the cap, there's a screw. Pretty ugly looking screw. At least it's a Phillips head. And we know in the past, a lot of pens out of China have had issues with that screw rusting. I haven't had or heard of any issues with this V60, but who knows? Been nice to have seen a brass screw or something. Hopefully it's made out of stainless steel or some corrosion-resistant metal. But it is a good-looking pen, even with the intense LED light. So one thing Majohn did is they didn't spend any money on packaging. The pen arrived in that normal bubble wrap with a little plastic sleeve. That was it. Whereas the Omas 360 was packaged extremely well, which also I think was representative of the price of the pen. I'll put a link to my review where I went into a little bit more detail on my 360, but now we're going to compare it to the Majohn V60. And like I said, they did an interesting job in creating that Greek motif in their own style. Certainly the Omas one has just an infinite amount of detail to it. And we can see Omas there at the back of the cap. But they've just put Moon Man on the back of their cap. And there's no additional bands like there is here. The clips are pretty much almost identical. And stiff, even stiffer. And at the end is that piston cap that moves the piston up and down. Cap pops off. As I mentioned before, the cap on this Omas pen just doesn't fit and feel as nice as the one on Majohn pen. Yeah, they're a silvery looking nib, steel nib, gold nib. Is that white gold? Could be. It's 18 karat, 750 as you can see. And there's another motif there in that band at the end of the section. But they didn't duplicate it exactly. But it still looks good as it is. So that's as much as I'm going to do with the comparison. But we'll just try one more thing. Now, caps don't work. It's different on the whatever mechanism they're using to snap on the cap is different. You can hear there's no real clicky there like you would hope and expect it to be, considering it's a high-end pen. Yeah, I like playing with the camera. So what ink to use? You know, I'm not a safe guy. This is back to 2021. And here's some of my first trauma inks, if we're going to call them that. Or red diamond is what I'm looking for. Nice red color, a little on the pink side, and has a little glitter. Here's the ink bottle. Nice red fish there. And as we can see, it looks like it has some golden glitter. Been sitting for quite a while. So we'll see how well it works in the Majohn pen. So the other downside to this pen design is I couldn't fill it from this bottle. It just doesn't fit into that opening at all. So I decanted this ink into a small vial to be able to fill the pen. I got a pretty full fill. We'll give you that milliliters. So the pen writes as I expected with this fine steel nib from Majohn. It's not the best fine nib I've ever written with, but it does the job. It's stiff, as I expected. It's actually a little wetter than I expected. I thought the nib would be a little drier. I do like the color. Yeah, our dogs are barking at something. But, you know, again, I didn't get the pen because I expected to love the writing. I got the pen because I just like the way it looks, and I wanted to understand from an engineering viewpoint how it was put together. So one thing that is absolutely great about this pen is it will not roll. For those of us that have had many pens roll off their desk, fall on the floor, bend the nib, sometimes break. It will never happen to this pen. Even uncapped, it won't roll. So that is, to me, the best thing about this design from a functional viewpoint. Aesthetics, as I said many, many times, it's a beautiful pen. I love the way it looks. So we've reached a conclusion of this video. I hope you found it interesting, informative. I have to sum up the fact that from a writing perspective, another pen I'm not a fan of. Unlike, you can see some writing left over from that 9019 with a heartbeat nib, which is like mind-boggling. This is on the lesser side of that by a large amount. But again, the pen is beautiful, it's pretty, it's well made, it's unique in a sense, other than the fact that it looks like the Omas 360. But for a pen out of China, there's certainly nothing else that looks like this one does. And like I say, it's well made. The nib is going to be difficult to replace. It's not going to be the easiest pen to maintain. It has a lot of what I might consider to be downsides to it, but they're not deal breakers. If you love the pen, you don't mind somewhat dry nib. I'm going to do a little work on it, a little smoothing, and I'm certain it'll be a little bit nicer, but it's never going to be great. So with that, I hope this video found everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, all of your pens, whether you have one or more than one, as I do, and put some ink down. Write a letter, correspond, keep your journal up to date, whatever it is that you do. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for watching. We've reached the end, and we will say bye-bye-bye-bye.